Hi, welcome to the Kitchen of Lindy Says. I'm Lindy. Today we are going to make a delicious pork chili verde. Now I do a lot of investigation into my recipes before I post them to see what other people are doing. And it looked to me like a lot of people are using more tomatillos than they are chilies. So they're really making a pork tomatillo verde. I like a little bit of chili in mine, so we're going to start with 3 poblanos. I used 3 this time because they're kind of small. I've got some serrano, some jalapeno, some Anaheim chilies, and those are very mild. Those are just for flavor. They don't have very much heat to them at all. And we have some tomatillos, and these are not tomatoes. These are a member of the nightshade family. They have this papery husk which needs to be removed. And then they're they're sticky, so just pay attention to that. We have some oregano, some cumin, salt, garlic. We're going to use half of that can of tomatoes because it calls for 14 ounces of tomatoes, and about 4 to 5 pounds of pork roast that we are going to cut into a large dice. So let's get cooking. We're going to start by roasting our peppers. Because there's so many of them, I'm going to do them in the oven underneath the broiler. I just put them right on the rack. And let's go ahead and get those going. Go ahead and prepare our pan for steaming them so we can easily remove their skins once they're done. Couple of things of some plastic wrap here over the top, and then we'll just stick those right in here and they'll close it up and they'll just steam. They're going. Let's prepare our tomatillos by removing this papery skin. Like I said, they're really sticky inside, so just be prepared to buy them in the store where they are still wrapped up. That's the best ones to get. Get the large ones and ones that are still wrapped up. Okay, once your tomatillos are all ready, peeled, go ahead and put them in a sieve, give them a good rinse. We're going to roast those just a little bit after our peppers are done. As the peppers get nice and roasty, turn them over with a pair of tongs. Make sure you get all sides well toasted, well browned. See, that skin's already starting to come off. That whole onion. This was a large onion, so it's going to be about 1.5 cups of diced onion. I just go down once and then I go across. Been cooking many years, and I haven't had anyone ever complain about my diced onions for not doing the cutting this way and all that stuff. Just makes it harder to cut the onion. That's probably closer to 2 cups of onions. Our peppers are nice and roasty. So it's time to put them in their container. Tomatillos in here. Let them just get a little char on them. And then we're going to just dice them. They don't have to be real super fine because you're going to be cooking it for a long time. They're going to practically disappear. And then we're going to work on our jalapeno. I find the easiest way to get the seeds out of a jalapeno is to just cut around them. wear gloves or be very careful and wash your hands very, very well after working with jalapenos and serranos, because you don't want to get those juices in your eyes or in your nose or in your mouth. Seeds. Seeds in the ribs is what gives you the heat. So if you like hot, you can leave a few seeds in. If you don't want it quite so hot, make sure you remove all the seeds. Okay, I've cut my meat into about 1-inch chunks, and I've cut most of the fat, all of the fat that's out like this, off of it. I used a cutting board, so I don't recommend you do it this way. Because while you want some fat in the meat, that keeps it tender and moist, biting into something like that is not pleasant. So you want to make sure that you remove the big chunks of fat. Like this one here. See that? It's just got a little bit too much fat on the outside, so we're just going to cut that off. We're going to pat it with a little bit of paper towels. Why are we patting it? Because we want to brown this meat, and wet meat doesn't brown. So you want to dry it out a little bit. You want to use a big pan. You want to have it hot, and you want your meat to be dry, and then you don't want to overcrowd the 4 pounds of meat here, and I'm going to season it generously with salt, and freshly ground pepper. Toss that together. Get these peppers going. Should be cool enough to handle. I have my knife just in case I need it. So we're just going to pull the skins off. Still a little bit hotter than I thought. So use your asbestos fingers to pull the skins off. Do not run peppers under the water. It just dilutes the flavor of them. So just keep it out of the water. A little bit of extra skin stuck to them is not going to hurt anything. So just get as much of the skin off as you can. Having a little bit of trouble, just use your knife, scrape it. So now that our peppers are all skinned, we're going to seed them and dice them. You know, I said earlier that I do a lot of investigation into recipes when I'm developing them, first off, and then of course when I'm making these videos, because I don't want to just repeat and say the same thing everybody else has and do the same thing everybody else has done. And like I said, mine's different. For one thing, it actually uses chilies in it, which I think is a key to a good chile verde. And the second thing is, I saw quite a few of the recipes, they use like bell peppers in them. And I'm like, what? Where are you coming from with a bell pepper? A bell pepper just doesn't have any place at all in your chile verde, in my opinion. If you want to do it, you are probably watching the wrong channel then right now, because you're not going to get anything close to that with my recipe. Here's another good thing for that dough scraper. Just getting the seeds off the board. See that? The tomatillo part of the program. I've already got my tomatoes in here. This is kind of a different ingredient. I did see one or two recipes that used some diced tomatoes in there, but not too many. As I said, most of them are just tomatillos and a couple of chilies, like a can of Ortega, 7-ounce can of Ortega chilies. And I don't think that I can stress enough. I know it's a lot of work. This isn't something you're going to want to make for a quick weekday meal, that's for sure. But on a rainy Saturday or a snowy Saturday or Sunday or a snow day, it would be fun to make, and it makes your house smell so good. So I'm just cutting these tomatillos up into quarters and adding them to these tomatoes. They're nice and soft. I use skin and all. Juice as well. It's all flavor. Then I'm going to put in those chopped chilies. I'm going to let the processor chop them up for me. It's a small handful of cilantro leaves. This is an optional ingredient. If you don't like cilantro, leave it out. And then we're going to close it up and we're going to put it on the processor. We don't want to liquefy it. We want to chop it. That looks pretty good right there. Dutch oven with the tight fitting lid. We are going to start heating our pan over a medium-high heat. Once the pan is hot, we're going to add some neutral oil. In this case, I'm using grapeseed oil. Good old Trader Joe's. Get that hot. And we'll start adding our meat in small batches to get it to brown. Brown your meat well on all sides. Did you know that when meat is ready to be turned, it will automatically release itself from the pan? If you're having trouble getting your meat to turn over, it's just not ready for you yet. So leave it alone and let it get ready for you to turn it. It'll release itself. Once the meat is nicely browned, remove it to another pan. And add your next batch. Browning the meat really takes the most time. And if you were actually making this at home, you would start browning your meat while you're prepping your other ingredients, roasting and chopping your peppers, taking care of your tomatillos and making your mix of that, chopping your onions. You wouldn't be doing it piece by piece like I'm doing here, but so far I haven't found a way to record myself doing more than one thing at one time with one camera. When the last batch of meat is almost ready, turn down your heat to a medium-low and let the pan cool off a little bit for when you add your onions and garlic. Okay, our meat's brown, our pan's calmed, so let's add our onions and garlic. Onions have a lot of water in them, so they're really good for helping to get up all this nice, lovely brown stuff. Once you've got all those nice brown bits scraped up, we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of flour. This is just going to help the sauce thicken up a little bit while it's cooking. If you're not using flour, you can omit it. If you're, or wheat products, you can omit it, or use whatever thickener you have been using in your new diet. So we're going to cook that for just a couple minutes to get rid of the raw flour flavor. We're going to add all of our meat and any accumulated juice back to the pan. Get a real spoon for mixing this up. We're going to add 1 tablespoon of dried oregano and 1 teaspoon of cumin. We'll adjust those for taste when we're all done. That's a good starting point. Add our chilies. Nicely diced, roasted chilies. Stir those in. Now add your tomatillo puree with the serranos, jalapeno, and cilantro. And now, because I want the meat covered, I'm going to add just a little bit of chicken broth. You can use chicken broth or water, just to make sure your meat's covered. Pop the top on. And we're going to stick it in the oven for about 3 hours. Here, after about 2.5, 3 hours, meat's all tender. It's really tasty. We're going to taste it and adjust seasonings, but first thing we're going to do is we're going to let it sit for about 15-20 minutes. We're going to let the oil just rise to the top. Now, it's really best if you can do this the day before. Put it in the refrigerator, let it set overnight, and then all of the fat will solidify. But I can see that there is some fat in this, and we want to try to get as much of that out as we can. And just by letting it set for about 15-20 minutes or so, a lot of the fat will rise to the top, and we can just spoon it off, and then we'll have a much leaner chile verde. But it smells delicious.